What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. Before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and that the player ratings and potential of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those who are out there who are new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those who are out there who just want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team you may be using in career mode this year. So yes, in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, bringing it back, we are going to be using Crystal Palace of South London. Yeah, Crystal Palace, Premier League side, now of course managed by Patrick Vieira, Arsenal legend, took charge at the start of the season. And I've got to say, what a tremendous job he's done. Now, in the game, Crystal Palace are a 4-star team. Their starting transfer budget after wage budget alteration is around 31 to 32 million pounds. And their objectives in the first season are to finish in mid-table and reach the last 16 of the FA Cup as well. And as I run you through the team here, it's a really solid team. You know, they brought in some really good talents for this season, including Elise, of course, Odsonne Edouard up top as well, the former Celtic striker. But what you'll notice, I'm running you through the team, it's a really it's just like the team is just like, you got your seniors and then you got your youngsters, and there's not really much in between. It's an aging side with some good young talent as well. There are a couple of players in their mid-20s right now, but for the most part you'll see there's a real gap between the age of most players. Really, there's players that are in their early 20s or teens, and then the players that are in their 30s as well. Even so, it's not a bad team, and as I mentioned a moment ago, it's a 4-star team, and a reasonable starting budget at £32 million. And as I run you through it here, you'll see there's some talent for the future that are definitely worth looking out for. Tyrick Mitchell at left back. I'm a massive fan of Elise as well, who of course has come in for this season too. So there are certain players here to keep your eyes on as the years go by, but you are going to want to make some changes with this team, and of course you're going to want to start replacing some of those senior players I alluded to earlier. Now, there are several players that deals come the end of the year. As you'll notice though, most of the players are either in their 30s or in their late 20s. I'll be totally honest here, there are a couple of youngsters in Kirby and Giddings, but really I would let every single one of those players go in the first season, including Chet Koyate. I put these players on the transfer list: James Tompkins, Martin Kelly, Nathaniel Klein, Jordan Ayew, Jacques, and also Chet Koyate as well. Koyate is the only player I would consider possibly giving a 1-year extension to. He's 77 overall, so one of the highest rated players in the team, but do bear in mind he's 31 years old, so chances are he's going to decrease in ability in the very first season. So to me, I would personally sell him in the first season. Really good holding mid, but I would look to cash in and begin the rebuild now. So several players put on the transfer list, and what you'll notice is you won't get much money for these players because their ability is average at best, and they're also players that are in their 30s as well. So don't expect to get much than 2-3 million a pop for these sort of players. You're not going to get much cash for them, but what you'll notice is the key to selling these players is not the slight amount of money you'll raise, but reducing the wage bill. James Tompkins, for example, is on about 34.5 grand a week, and with his overall and his age, it's just not worth having a player like that. Same with Martin Kelly, he's on 33.5 grand a week as a 74 rated 31-year-old centre-half who you can replace with someone far better and also younger as well. The salaries of some of these players that I put on the transfer list, that's the key here. You're not going to raise much money for these players. Again, Martin Kelly, 2.6 mil, it's not a great deal amount of money for a Premier League side, but when you think about the wage that you're going to be cutting out from your weekly wage bill, it's pretty important. If you combine these 3 players here, Klein, Kelly, and also Tompkins as well, you're looking at close to around 100 grand, maybe a little bit less than that, but for those 3 players there, getting rid of that salary per week is much more beneficial than the minor transfer fee you'll be receiving. So we sold James Tompkins to Aston Villa. He's off to play on Steven Gerrard for £2.5 million. Again, 74 rated, 32 years old. You can get far better and younger than him. Nathaniel Klein went to Spezia in Italy for £2.5 million as well. So Klein, of course, been around the block, very, very good fullback in his day, but now definitely someone you'd look to cash in on in his 30s and no longer having the quality he showed back in the, well, to be fair, in his early days, Crystal Palace, very good young player, plus Southampton and Liverpool as well. And also we've had some bids here for Czech Koyate and also Christian Benteke as well. Now we go with Koyate, 77 rated, one of the highest rated players in the team. If you want to keep him, you can, but at 31 years old, I do believe you'll be able to bring in someone just as good, if not a little bit worse, but with far more potential and younger as well. So we agreed I think a £6.5 million deal here with Fenerbahce, and also for Christian Benteke as well. Of course, the former Aston Villa and Liverpool striker. We decided to sell him as well to Granada. I think we got £6 million for Benteke, or okay, 5.5 million for Christian Benteke. But again, you would have seen with the wages of Benteke on Koyate, very, very high. And for players that have a little bit of quality, yes, it's key to get their salaries off the books. They don't justify the contracts they're on, especially at their current ages as well. So for new signings with Crystal Palace, where would I look? Well, again, it's a decent team and there are some decent youngsters in here, no doubt about that, but I would look for a new right back. Now, of course, Joe Ward captaining the team here. He is obviously, been at Crystal Palace for a long time now, and Nathaniel Klein returning back to Selhurst Park. They're not terrible players, but after we sold Nathaniel Klein, we want a new right back, and we want to get someone younger. Both Ward and Klein are in their 30s. We want to get someone younger. The two recommendations I'd have are Tariq Lamptey of Brighton and Jayden Bogle of Sheffield United as well. In the end, I opted for Lamptey. He's 20 years old, but 74 rated, so just as good as Joel Ward. And he's also a player that has really good potential as well. In fact, I believe his potential is 84, so it grows 10 ratings. However, once you've got Lamptey, definitely put him on the defensive wide back development plan as well, because you'll notice he's a little lad. He's very, very small. Tariq Lamptey, he's rapid, he's very quick when he gets going, but he's not the tallest. He can't jump very high, and most importantly, his strength is horrendously low. It's like 39 or something like that. It's really, really low. You need to improve that strength, because in the game he's going to get bullied off the ball with the lack of height and the lack of strength as well. Plus you want that high defensive work rate as well. But after we signed Lamptey, to replace Nathaniel Klein, I also opted to replace Tompkins and Kelly with a new centre half. Now he actually is listed as a primary wing back in the game. He spent time playing all across the back four of Spurs, but personally I would have this guy as a centre half. It is Japhet Tanganga, really great young defender. Spurs fans will tell you that. A lot of potential, only 22 years old. And again, this guy's spent playing, well, he's been a real utility sort of man for Spurs in the early stages of his career. But personally, with the range of stats he's got, I would play him at centre-back. Now, naturally, you would look at his height there, 5'11". It's not the tallest for centre-halves. And, sometimes I'm like girls on Tinder. With my centre-halves, I want to be 6 foot plus, you know what I mean? But 5'11's only an inch shorter. With the high jumping and the high strength he's got, plus the high defensive work rate, it's not really that big of a deal. I would convert him from wing-back to centre-half. Personally, I think with the range of stats he's got, that's where he'd be at his best. That's what I'd look to do with Tanganga once I've brought him in from Spurs. And again, because he's one of the lower rated players in Spurs' team, you can get those sort of players on relatively cheap deals. So after the sales of Benteke and Koyate went through, we also sold Jordan Ayew to Leverkusen as well. 29 years old, always been a solid Premier League player, but definitely someone I'd look to replace in the first season and bring in someone to play on that wing in his place. My three recommendations: Jeremy Doku, great young talented Belgian, De La Vega, and also this guy as well, Thiago Almada. All three players, really, really good youngsters. And whilst Thiago Almada is primarily a central-based player, playing for Atalanta United on the East Coast in America, I personally would change this guy to play on the wing. You'll notice he's got LW and RW as secondary positions, so he spent time playing there. And with the range of stats he's got, and the pace he's got as well, the 4-star, the high-low work rates, for me personally, I think he'd do better on the wing in this Crystal Palace team. So yeah, I'll personally change him from attacking mid to wing. You'll notice when you are changing a player's position, based on the length of time it takes them to become established in that position, that's a good indicator as to where they should be playing. So 2 weeks kind of tells the story really. Thiago Almada will be just as good playing on the wing. And as for my replacement for Koyate, I decided to go after this guy from Granada, Jan Bryce Iteki, I believe formerly of Sevilla. Might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure formerly of Sevilla at one point, maybe not. But even so, this guy's a really good holding mid, and you can get him for under the valuation. And the reason why is because his contract's up coming the end of the year. Now, he's a 75 rated Cameroonian holding mid. He's got some okay physicals, some okay technicals, but the solid player trait, the medium-high work rates as well. He's very good at most things. Maybe not amazing at most things, but solid enough, but primarily as a defensive-based player in your midfield trio as your anchor man and your long-term successor for Koyate. At 23 years old, 8 ratings lower than Chet Koyate, and only 2 ratings lower as well. 8 years younger and only 2 ratings lower as well. He'd be a solid replacement for Koyate, who of course you'll probably sell in Season 1. And as for bringing players in on bargain deals, I had to do this. After the sale of Christian Benteke, I decided to sign Raspador of Sassuolo, and if you've played this game for longer than 3 months, you'll know this guy is unbelievable in this year's FIFA. His potential is 85. He normally ends up at a big boy as the years go by. Having this guy as your long-term successor for Christian Benteke is just a brilliant piece of business. And again, just like with Teke, you can get this guy for under the valuation because his deal is upcoming the end of the year. So he's valued at 11 mil, but we only have to pay 10 million to get him. And it's 75 rated and just 21 years old as well. This guy's going to be incredible. Give him the target man development plan once you get him in as well, because that will train up the strength and also the jumping as well. Make him more of an aerial threat, along with his good goal scoring ability with the feet as well. And this guy will turn into a complete number 9 as the years go by. So yeah, Raspadori for 10 mil is an absolute bargain for Crystal Palace. And again, Otton Edouard's a great forward. We've seen it this year in his debut in the Premier League, but the long-term number 9 will be Raspadori's at Selhurst Park if you can bring him in. So, yeah, following the signings there, we sold James McArthur to Sheffield United. He's on his way to Bramwell Lane. Once again, don't get much money, but do get the salary off the books, much more important. And I tried hard to sell this guy as well, Yaroslav Yak, 27 years old, 64 rated. He's far too old to be getting really good now, and at 64 overall, just isn't really cut out for Premier League football at this point in the game. So I tried to sell him, but I just could not manage to negotiate a sale with him going anywhere else. But we did decide to reinvest the money we had for McArthur, plus the season ticket sales, on one more signing, and I picked up Pedro de la Vega. Showed you this guy very briefly earlier. Great young Argentine talent on the flanks. Really great hair, if I don't say so myself, but very tricky, very creative. He's got some pace about him as well, sort of that high energy sort of play, you know, with 4-star skill moves, high medium work rates too, and he'll give Almada some competition for the first choice wing spot in this team with Crystal Palace. Very decent youngster, and again, you can get him for a pretty decent fee in the very first season. So yeah, on the back of those signings there, the last thing I did was go ahead and change Tanganga's position, and as you can see, changing him from wing back to centre back saw him grow 4 ratings to 78 overall, and that's because, again, with the range of stats he's got, centre half really is where he should be playing in this team. You know, defensive stats are really good, physically really strong, he can jump, and again at 5'11", you might be a little bit wary of the fact he's not as tall as some traditional centre halves, but 5'11" is not that small, girls of Tinder, I'm telling you. So respect for my guys under 6 foot, and again, he can jump really high too, so it's not too big of a deal. Plus, with the defensive stats he's got, he's far more suited to playing in centre half as opposed to at wing back. And the final signing I made was Jared Branthwaite of Everton. Now, I actually originally planned to have this guy as my replacement for Yaroslav Yak, but I couldn't sell him, so in the end I had both. But at 67 overall, 19 years old, this guy's got 83 potential, and a really good young centre-half to watch out for as the years go by. He won't be in your first team in the first season, but he's certainly a good reserve squad player to have as well, and a really good option to keep your eye on as the years go by. So in the end with Crystal Palace, we sold 7 players in the first window for 27.3 mil, and signed 7 players for 64.25 million. So in the end, it was a net loss of just under 37 million. And when you look at the replacements here, well, it's like I talked about at the start of the episode. The 7 players we sold, the youngest player was Jordan Ayew at 29 years old. The other 6 players, Tompkins, Kelly, Benteke, Koyate, etc., they were all 30 years old or older. So we sold the senior players of this team, got rid of the aging players, and the players we signed, all of which are either in their early 20s or teenage as well. We really changed the team, made it far younger, far more exciting for the future, and as per usual, we'd simulate the end of the season and see how Crystal Palace got on. And as you will see, in the first season, Crystal Palace asked to finish in mid-table and reach the last 16 in the FA Cup. Very simple objectives, I would say, in the first season. Well, we did just that, yeah. My manager rating dropped to 63, and you'll see why in just a moment's time. But even so, a 14th place finish for Crystal Palace. And I think the Palace fans will be more than happy with that for a first season undergoing a major rebuild with 7 sales and several signings. Liverpool won the title, Man City, Chelsea and Spurs going to the Champions League. Arsenal in 5th, West Ham 6th, and the Red Devils in 7th as well. But again, 14th place. You look at it and say only 10 wins in 38 wasn't the best, but 14th place is mid-table, and that's more than good enough. Cleared the relegation spots by a few points. 54 goals in 38 games is quite impressive as well for a mid-table side, and I'd say for a first season, that's solid. You know, Patrick Vieira this year coming into Crystal Palace, I've talked about him a few times now. I've been really impressed with how he's got his Eagles playing this year. They've made some changes to their team, they've made some changes to their play style. He's a new manager, his first role in the Premier League at a manager level, and he's done a tremendous job there. And the times are really exciting for Crystal Palace as well. There's some really good young talent at the club. It's a very, very fun team to watch with the flair they've got up top. It's a really, really good team, and I have to say, if you're looking for a project in this year's FIFA career mode in the Premier League, look no further than Crystal Palace. This is why my manager rating was so low, by the way. We were knocked out in the third round of the FA Cup by Southampton, so first round we exited to the Saints on the South Coast, but not a big deal. I've mentioned before, if you can hit your league objective in FIFA career mode, then 9 times out of 10, whatever else happens, you'll be fine. No exceptions in this save as well. So yeah, personally to me, I think Crystal Palace are one of the best Premier League teams you can do a long-term career mode with in this year's FIFA CM. It's a really fun team. They've got 3 good kits. I love the home kit this year. I think it's really, really nice. And the alternate kit, the blue and white half kit, is really cool too. They got the real stadium in Selhurst Park. It's a very atmospheric ground. They've got a London rivalry with many different clubs. Being a London side, loads of domestic rivals, and again, many years to work with this Crystal Palace team. But to build a core with this side, to take them far as the years go by, I would definitely say if you're looking for a long-term project in FIFA career mode this year in the Premier League, Crystal Palace are one of the absolute best teams you can use. They need a rebuild, they need work, you got to sell those aging players, bring in those younger players like we did today, but it's such a fun team to manage, it's such a fun team to rebuild, and I would definitely recommend Crystal Palace for a FIFA 22 career mode this year for a long-term RTG in the English Premier League. And as I run you through the signings here as well, the growth of this team was on full display in the first season, not just for the signings we made, but primarily from the signings we made. Thiago Almada, for example, going up 4 ratings, Della Vega and Raspadori growing 3 each as well. But even the players that were already here as well, like Olise, for example, growing a few ratings in the first season. It's a great team to inherit. There's a lot of work to do, but it's a really fun team to work with and build for the future as well. But that will end today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys. Big thank you for watching. Really hope you have enjoyed. If you have enjoyed today's episode of WTSF, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For, where hopefully I'm not feeling as bad. Doing an 18-minute commentary with my voice like this is not easy. Have a great day though, guys. Much love, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.